fabled heat, where magic meets desire. Subscribe to ignite the fantasy.
The rooftop trembled beneath my boots, each vibration echoing the rebellion's roar below. Steel plates of the helipad shivered as distant explosions rattled the sky, and the wind carried the metallic tang of burnt circuitry into my nostrils. My gloved hands clutched the plasma cannon, its barrel humming with a low, steady thrum that synced with the rapid beat of my heart. I inhaled sharply, the scent of molten metal sharp and acrid, making my eyes sting. I forced the sting away, blinking until the world cleared and let my gaze sweep over the shattered cityscape. Skyscrapers that once pierced the clouds now stood as battered sentinels, glass facades blown out, steel ribs exposed like the bones of a dying beast. Below, the streets were a maze of rubble, flickering firelight, and the occasional flash of gunfire that sliced the night air. The taste of acrid smoke coated my tongue, a gritty film of ash clinging to every breath. Somewhere nearby, a child's scream rose above the din, then was swallowed by the roar of a plasma burst. Heat radiated from the cannon's core, the hiss of my gloves against the overheated grip, a constant reminder that the weapon was alive, hungry for power. "Hold steady, Lyra," Varys's voice crackled through the battle link, low and primal, a growl that vibrated in my chest. His presence flooded my mind with tactical data, enemy positions, weak points, the rhythm of Imperial drones. Beneath the data, a raw, possessive need pulsed, making my thighs clench and my breath catch. I had grown accustomed to that feeling, thrilling, terrifying, intoxicating. I thought of the countless battles we'd fought side by side, the nights we'd huddled in abandoned tunnels, sharing whispered stories of lost families and stolen futures. I could still feel the heat of his hand on my back as we ran through rain-soaked alleys of the lower quarter, his breath hot against my ear, his fingers tracing the curve of my spine. The memory was a warm ember in the cold night, a reminder that even in the chaos I was never truly alone. Kale emerged from the shadows, his eyes smoldering like embers. He stepped close, the heat of his body a stark contrast to the cold steel around us. "You're reckless, Lyra," he murmured, his voice a low caress, "and I love it." A sudden alarm blared, red lights flashing as Imperial drones swooped in, their rotors a metallic whine that cut through the night. Varys shouted, "Target lock, fire now." I squeezed the trigger, plasma lancing toward the oncoming swarm. The cannon roared, a searing column of light that illuminated Kale's chiseled jaw and Varys's fierce expression. The blast erupted, sending a shockwave that knocked me off my feet. I hit the cold metal, the world tilting, and felt Kale's hand catch my wrist, his grip firm yet tender. His thumb brushed the scar on my forearm, sending a jolt of heat through me. The scar was a reminder of a raid gone wrong, a line of fire that had once threatened to end me. Now it was a map of survival, and his touch made it pulse with new life. As the smoke cleared, the rooftop began to crumble. Varys's voice cut through the chaos. "We need to move now." I scrambled to my feet, heart pounding, the taste of iron and desire mingling on my tongue. The concrete beneath my boots cracked, sending shards of stone skittering like frightened insects. We leapt from the collapsing helipad, the city below a blaze of fire and steel. The wind tore at my hair, and for a heartbeat I was weightless, caught between the roar of battle and the electric pull of two men who claimed me in body and soul. The drop felt endless, but the moment my boots met the lower platform, Varys's arm wrapped around my waist, pulling me close. "Stay with me," he whispered, his breath hot against my ear. The words were both command and promise, and I felt a surge of gratitude that steadied my trembling limbs. Kale landed beside us, his boots thudding against the cracked concrete. He glanced up at the sky, where the first hints of dawn were bleeding pink through the smoke. "We have a chance to slip through the east tunnel," he said, his voice low but urgent. "It's the only way to avoid the main patrols." I nodded, feeling the weight of the cannon settle against my shoulder. The weapon was heavy, but the weight of my choices felt heavier still. I thought of the rebellion's cause, the people we fought for, and the fragile hope that flickered in the eyes of the civilians we tried to protect. "Varys, cover us," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Kale, watch my six." He responded with a guttural laugh that seemed to shake the very air. "You always were the brave one, Lyra. Let's make sure this night ends with us still standing." We sprinted toward the east tunnel, the ground trembling with each explosion that rippled through the city. The tunnel entrance was a jagged mouth of steel and concrete, half collapsed but still passable. As we slipped inside, the roar of battle faded into a distant hum, replaced by the echo of our own footsteps and the occasional drip of water from the ceiling. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the sour smell of rust. My gloves slipped on the slick stone, and I felt a sudden pang of fear. What if the tunnel gave way? Kale's hand found mine, his fingers interlacing with mine in a grip that was both reassuring and possessive. "We'll get through," he said, his voice a soft promise that steadied my racing heart. Varys moved ahead, his silhouette a dark blur against the dim light. He paused, turning his head to glance back at us. "Keep your eyes open," he warned, his tone softer than the battlefield had ever allowed. "The Imperials have set traps." I swallowed, feeling the metallic taste of adrenaline surge through my veins. My mind raced, cataloging every sound, every shift in the air. The tunnel walls seemed to close in, the darkness pressing against my skin like a living thing. A sudden crack echoed ahead, and a burst of flame erupted from a hidden vent, sending a wave of heat that licked my face. I flinched, but Kale was already at my side, pulling me into a shallow alcove. "Quick," he hissed, pressing a hand to my back to shield me from the heat. The flame died as quickly as it had appeared, leaving a thin plume of smoke that curled upward. I could hear the distant clatter of Imperial boots, the metallic clang of their armor as they searched for us. "They're close," Varys called from deeper within the tunnel. "Stay low." I pressed my forehead against the cold stone, feeling the vibrations of their approach. My heart hammered in my chest, each beat a drum of defiance. I could feel the cannon's weight shifting against my shoulder, a reminder that I still carried the fire of the rebellion. Kale's hand found my cheek, his thumb tracing a gentle line down my jaw. "You're doing well," he murmured, his breath warm against my skin. "You're stronger than you think." A sudden shudder ran through the tunnel as a massive slab of concrete gave way, sending a cascade of dust and stone tumbling toward us. I lunged forward, the cannon's barrel bumping against my side, and threw myself behind a fallen beam. The impact sent a shock of vibration through my bones, but I held on, my fingers digging into the rough wood. Varys's voice crackled again, urgent and fierce. "Now move." I pushed myself up, the cannon's weight a familiar anchor. Kale grabbed my arm, his grip tight enough to pull me forward but gentle enough to not break my resolve. Together we surged forward, the tunnel narrowing into a cramped passage that forced us to move single file. The passage opened into a larger chamber, dimly lit by flickering emergency lights. In the center stood a rusted control panel, its screens cracked but still glowing with faint data streams. Varys stepped forward, his eyes scanning the readouts. "We can overload the main power grid from here," he said, his voice low but filled with purpose. "If we can shut down the Imperial drones, we'll give the city a chance to breathe." I felt a surge of hope rise in my chest, mingling with the lingering fear. "What do we need?" I asked, my voice steadier now. "A core conduit and a manual override," Varys replied. "Kale, you and I will handle the wiring. Lyra, you keep watch. If anything comes, you fire the cannon at the nearest drone." I nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle like a mantle on my shoulders. I positioned myself near the entrance, the cannon's barrel angled toward the tunnel's mouth. The metal sang under my grip, humming with potential energy. Kale moved to the panel, his fingers dancing over the broken switches. "It's a mess," he muttered, his brow furrowed, "but we can make it work." Varys knelt beside him, his hands moving with practiced precision. I could see the concentration etched on his face, the lines of battle softened only by the flicker of the dying lights. A sudden clang echoed from the tunnel entrance. A group of Imperial soldiers had found our hiding place. Their boots clanged against the metal, their helmets reflecting the weak light. I felt a surge of adrenaline, the cannon's barrel vibrating against my palm. "Now," Varys shouted, and Kale slammed a lever down, sending a surge of electricity through the panel. The lights flickered, then surged brighter as the power grid began to overload. The Imperial soldiers burst into the chamber, weapons raised. I raised the cannon, feeling the familiar weight settle into my hands. "Hold your fire," I whispered to myself, the words a mantra against the chaos. The first soldier lunged forward, his plasma rifle spitting a bright bolt that missed me by inches. I inhaled, the taste of ozone sharp on my tongue, and squeezed the trigger. A bolt of pure plasma erupted from the cannon, striking the soldier's chest and sending him spiraling backward, his armor sparking and hissing. Kale and Varys continued their work, wires sparking as they connected the conduit. The chamber filled with a low, humming vibration that seemed to pulse in time with my heartbeat. Another wave of soldiers entered, their faces a mask of determination. I fired again, each shot a burst of light that cut through the darkness, each impact a reminder that I was still alive, still fighting. Almost there, Varys shouted, his voice hoarse with effort. Just a little longer. The humming grew louder, the air thickening with charged particles. I could feel the energy building, a storm gathering in the very walls of the tunnel. Cale's hand found mine again, his grip firm. "We're almost done," he said, his eyes locked on mine. "Stay with me." The final surge of power surged through the panel, and the lights exploded into a blinding white. The chamber shook, dust raining down like snow. The Imperial drones outside sputtered, their systems overloaded, their lights flickering out one by one. A deafening crack echoed as the power grid collapsed, sending a wave of energy that rippled through the city. The sky above the rebellion's stronghold lit up with a cascade of sparks, the night sky turning into a canvas of fire. When the light faded, the chamber was silent except for our ragged breathing. Varys slumped against the wall, his chest rising and falling with exhaustion. Cale lowered his hand from my wrist, his eyes softening as he looked at me. "We did it," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the distant rumble of collapsing structures. I lowered the cannon, its barrel still warm from the battle. The taste of ash lingered on my tongue, but a new flavor, sweet, metallic, hopeful, began to rise. Varys turned his head toward me, his eyes meeting mine with a fierce intensity. "You saved us all," he said, his voice raw with emotion. "You saved the city." I felt a flush rise to my cheeks, a mixture of pride and relief. "We saved each other," I replied, my voice steady. Cale stepped forward, his hand reaching up to cup my cheek. The touch was gentle, reverent, as if he were afraid to break the fragile moment. "Lyra," he breathed, "you are the fire that keeps us burning." The three of us stood amid the wreckage, the city's skyline a jagged silhouette against the dawn. The first rays of sunlight pierced the smoke, painting the ruins in gold and amber. The air was cool now, the heat of battle replaced by a quiet, lingering warmth that seemed to settle in my bones. I closed my eyes for a heartbeat, letting the sounds of the city, sirens, distant cries, the soft hum of the remaining drones wash over me. When I opened them, I saw Varys's hand resting on my shoulder, his grip strong yet tender. Cale's eyes never left mine, his gaze a promise of futures yet to be written. "What now?" I asked, my voice barely more than a whisper. Varys smiled, a fierce crooked grin that lit up his scarred face. "Now we rebuild," he said. "Now we find the people who need us, and now we find a way to be together without the world trying to tear us apart." Cale nodded, his expression softening. "We'll make a new world, Lyra, one where we can love without fear." I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes, not from sorrow but from the overwhelming surge of hope. The battle had taken much, but it had also forged something unbreakable between us. "Then let's start," I said, my voice steady, my heart full. "Let's make sure the night never ends for us again." We turned toward the sunrise, the city's ruins behind us, the promise of a new day ahead. The wind brushed my hair, carrying with it the faint scent of rain that had yet to fall. In that moment I knew that whatever storms lay ahead, we would face them together, two men who loved me, a rebel who refused to surrender, and a world that would finally hear our roar.